Welcome to Miami, Luis Arraez, straight into the arbitration room. Arbitration hearings have been happening this week. We have news on Luis Arraez. We have news on Jesus Luzardo. We are awaiting news on John Birdie. Wait to see on that one. Plus, it is prospect ranking season. Kieth Law is back with his 2023 version of the top 100. Plus, also a farm ranking as well. We're going to dig into that on today's episode, as well as the arbitration news, all on a Friday episode with the UK GOAT, Sean Barrett, all on today's Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked On Marlins. This is your daily Marlins podcast. Happy Friday, guys. Hope everyone is doing well. I am your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up on Twitter at Miami Marlins_UK. If you are listening, hit subscribe. If you are wondering, yes, there is a YouTube channel. Yes, it is called Locked On Marlins. And yes, you can see us. We are here. Myself, the UK GOAT, Sean Barrett, is back on a Friday. Sean, thanks for joining me. How we doing, brother?
Doing well. A rare Friday appearance for me.
Very rare.
You did a wise choice of getting us in early, for sure.
Absolutely. I know the profile. I know the profile of both myself and yourself. And Friday evenings, it's fair to say, can get sloppy, potentially at the back end. So we've hit it early, relatively early. So this will be dropping really kind of East Coast friendly. You even get your evening commute home, your afternoon commute home, whatever it may be. So, tons to get into, mate. I mean, we're here, start of Feb, and more news continues to rumble. Feels like the roster is firming up, but the dollar amounts is really starting to firm up here. And as well, some of the prospect view, the prospect status, let's say, is starting to formalize as well with MLB Pipeline, Kieth Law, everyone out there now putting out their views in terms of the prospects and where the Marlins sit within that. So, absolutely tons to get into today, guys. I'm really looking forward to this one. But before we do that, guys, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It's official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. You can visit fanduel.com/lockedon today to get started. There'll be more from those guys later on. Just wait to see that. Sean, first arbitration news dropped yesterday on Thursday. Luis Arraez and the Marlins have now firmed up the arbitration 1 number, and the arbiter, that's the right way of phrasing it, sided with Luis Arraez. The kink in this one is the $5 million that was submitted by the team was not submitted by the Marlins. So that is a wrinkle to this whole system where the Twins had submitted $5 million and Arraez had filed at $6.1 million. The Marlins can't do anything with what was submitted by the Twins. So that is the wrinkle in this one. And the decision comes down in favor of the player. Love to see that, by the way. So, Sean, Arraez, $6.1 million, year 1 of ARB, the best second baseman in baseball, perhaps. How are we feeling about the dollar amount? And let's just dig into this really kind of unique situation here that the Marlins faced into, where they've traded for a guy that they really liked and coveted. And one of their first orders of business is to walk into the arbitration hearing and try to haggle 1.1 million worth of bucks out of him. So an interesting start to the relationship, I think, on this one.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a strange situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
The idea that the Marlins essentially first order of business is to tell Arraez why he doesn't deserve to earn X amount of money.
Wow.
But for me, it's weird, isn't it? Because I talk a lot about fixed costs and known costs. And I mean, the Marlins knew that at worst that was going to be 6.1.
Yeah.
But I think realistically, a team, if Arraez had come in early pre the numbers being matched, I think they might have tried to sort of meet in the middle somewhere, because Arraez had a great year. Let's not take that away from him. And 6.1 for a first year of arbitration. That serves now as the baseline for year 2 and year 3. And it is a case of that number is big. That's one of the larger year 1 ARB numbers that the Marlins will have ever paid.
Definitely.
So I think it is a case of they knew that. I think they probably knew that they were going to lose. I hope they didn't argue too hard in that room, because the last thing you want to do is upset the player in his first 2 weeks of being a Marlin. But the number is deserved, isn't it? He's the batting title. He's a great player. The Marlins traded for him for a reason.
Yeah,
and they knew that they were going to have to back that up by paying him down the line.
It's the point that you made there, I think, is really intriguing. I mean, it'd be very interesting to see how the Marlins actually handled that situation, and whether actually they just went, we can't do anything about the numbers that are filed. We've traded for a guy that we really like, and actually we maybe see being a big part of the future. Maybe this was one of the shortest hearings in history. Maybe the Marlins just walked in there and said, Luis, you deserve 6.1 million. You take the 6.1. And that was it. Maybe that was the end of conversation. That may be the optimistic way of looking at things. But we know the Miami Marlins and we know their financial approach. And gut feel says there was still some discourse, let's say, around the topic. But the Marlins in some ways were put in a really tricky spot there. However, they could have done something before the hearing, perhaps. There's nothing stopping them, I guess, before the hearing, reaching a deal. And they didn't. Arraez clearly felt he was worth 6.1 million. I was looking back. I mean, I always think of what's the biggest kind of arbitration numbers knocking around for year 1. I just went straight to Juan Soto, thinking, what did Soto get in Arbor? He got 8.5 million, Soto. And so, that for me is like the superstar ARB1 number. And Arraez isn't a million miles away from that. So he's done well. Soto obviously well accelerated into that, as well as he's gone into ARB2 and and beyond. So, it's a rocky start for the relationship, perhaps. I do hope the Marlins were sensitive to that. But at the end of the day, it's just business, as they say. But now we have the baseline there. We also get news around Jesus Luzardo. The Marlins were haggling for a couple $100,000 with this one with Jesus. I think the Marlins filed at 2.1 and Luzardo at 2.45. So $350K on Luzardo. They see him as a big part of the future, according to the sense we get in the trade market. It feels a bit awkward again with someone that they are really looking towards for the next 3 seasons to have that type of conversation. I don't know. For me, I feel like the Marlins have probably played this one a little bit wrong. I don't know. What about you?
I do. I think I've always thought that. I think it was Jordan McPherson, if it wasn't, I apologize, who basically said that he expected it to go to the arbiter because Luzardo felt like his number was artificially low compared to what he was now.
Right.
And for me, I think I responded along the lines of, for this meeting in the middle at $175,000 it's not nothing. Let's not kid ourselves.
No.
But in the grand scheme of things, to keep a guy that you want to be your number 2, number 3 pitcher,
yeah,
going down the line, it's not much money to keep him happy, to keep him invested in the Marlins. Like the sooner you tell a player this is just a business, and we look at you like ones and zeros on a spreadsheet, that just doesn't look good, does it? In my eyes. And it was a small number. And again, yes, ARB1, so that number multiplies through the years.
Yeah.
But I think on the back of what we saw from Luzardo last year and projecting that into the future, I think the Marlins have got an asset there that they really shouldn't mess around with.
No, and I think we got that sense last time around with Pablo Lopez. Like, they ended up going to arbitration again. It was actually during the season. It was a bit funky because of the lockout. And already I remember I was Danny Alvarez was on the pod with me at the time, and I asked him about that topic specifically. What's your sense here with the Marlins and Pablo Lopez? They'd obviously just extended Sandy, and his point that his view at that stage was, doesn't get the sense the Marlins are looking to extend Pablito, and obviously now traded. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be, it's just part and parcel of baseball. It's a funky element of baseball and the way that this whole process works. I can't quite wrap my head around it, but hey ho, it is what it is, and it's newsworthy right now, so that's good. But two of the Marlins' best players they ended up having an arbitration hearing with, and we kind of know how they go. And I would say they should probably look to avoid those kind of conversations at all costs if they can. Primarily because if they do want to extend these guys, they need to play to hometown discount kind of vibes. So as a quid pro quo, as part of that, you need to kind of look after them maybe in the early part. Anyway, John Birdie, we haven't heard about yet. I mean, clearly, Arraez and Luzardo are the bigger priorities, perhaps, and the bigger numbers. But we'll wait to see how Birdie fares here. That news is expected later on today. So probably by the time you're listening to it, you will know what's happened. Sean, we're going to talk about some prospects real soon. And we're going to talk about Kieth Law, which is one of my favorite prospect analysts for certain. But before we do that, guys, as I've already mentioned, it's time to talk about FanDuel. And we're excited about our new sports betting partner. Have you been in? Have you got into the app yet? Have you signed up? If you haven't, make sure you do and listen up later. But for Locked On, this is the number one sportsbook in America, and it's FanDuel. And if you are new, it's even better. They've got so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. I've even fired up the graphics now on YouTube. So there we go. You can download FanDuel right now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. Absolutely love that line. You get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. They've got everything covered on FanDuel. They let you bet on the money line, of course, point spreads, who will score a touchdown. You name it, FanDuel have it. It's safe and secure and super easy to use, of course. And you get paid winnings instantly. No waiting. Yes, sir. And listen, there could be some serious winnings to be had on those Chiefs. I don't know. We'll wait and see. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/locked-on to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That is FanDuel.com/locked-on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, then, Mr. Barrett, let's talk some prospects now. And disclaimer now to everyone that's listening, myself and Sean Barrett this isn't our main specialism. It's definitely not mine, for certain. So I think it's fun to talk about. I like talking about it. And again, it's one of the I guess, most polarizing topics in baseball, I'd say, around prospect evaluations, number of top 100 prospects, and rah. What we continue to see over and over and over again is, those rankings can be a little bit wonky at times. The best prospects in baseball flame out quickly, and it just is what it is. But Sean, let's dig into Kieth Law's top 100. 3 top 100 prospects for the Marlins. No surprises on who the top prospect is, Eury Perez. However, the main headline, I would say, is that he is Kieth Law's top pitching prospect overall, and that is huge gravitas to Eury Perez. I mean, were you surprised that he was the top pitching prospect overall?
Not at all. I think last time we spoke prospects, we spoke a lot about Eury. I think we spoke 75% about Eury, and deservedly so. Yeah, what he did in AA at the age of 19 is crazy. And I remember us talking about the idea of he could see major league time next year, this coming year.
Absolutely.
And early. It could be as soon as June. It could be straight away, not straight away, because there's still some financial finagling going on in Major League Baseball, but less so than there used to be. But yeah. I think we could realistically see Eury as soon as needed.
That's
depending on how things go through the season. Yeah. He has the stuff. He has the control. He is every part the best pitcher in baseball. He has, like I said, the stuff, the control, the makeup. Everything about Eury is number one in baseball as far as a prospect. And that's not me saying that. That's me hearing other people that know what they're talking about saying that.
Absolutely. I'm with you, mate. That's all I hear is just how impressive Uri Perez is. He has it all. And particularly for a man of his size, I think that is the one thing that really stands out, literally, is that Uri Perez's stature and to have the stuff and control is unique. And to your point, this is going to be a when needed situation with Uri because with the injuries to Max Meyer, the rehab to Sixto, trade of Pablo, they're one or two little dings away from needing him, early on in the year. And we know the drill, right? Like we think back to last year, Luzardo within a month and a half was down. It's just baseball, right? There's going to be little injuries and whatever to these guys. So we're going to see Uri Perez, I think, pretty early. I think we're going to see him before the All-Star break, to be honest. I'm very intrigued to see how he can translate. To be honest with you, it's going to be wild to follow. And this won't just be a Marlins story. This is going to be an MLB, a national story, I think, that will just bubble along in 2023. There's going to be a lot of buzz, a lot of eyeballs on him. And for me, that is going to be the biggest thing, is just trying to just keep within himself. And I think this is what it boils down to, spending so much time with Sandy. Like Sandy is definitely, they've come very close, the two of them. And because I think Sandy knows that he's going to be in the rotation for a good chunk of 23, to be honest with you. And it's about preparing him mentally, learning from Sandy, because Sandy, in terms of preparation, to me, sounds almost second to none. The way he phases out, the way he concentrates, the way he gets himself ready to go. And I think there's Sandy just kind of starting to groom him in terms of what it is you need to be doing to prepare, to make sure that you can shut it all out, turn up on the mound and deliver like we know he can. Very exciting situation. Let's scroll way down the prospect list, though, now. The second prospect in Keith's rankings here, Dax Fulden. Lefty, obviously, Dax. I would say he has definitely had a lot of helium as well, Sean, recently. Like, there's a lot of buzz around Dax. And for me, he was unranked last year in Keith's top 100, so we have to call that out. So he's a riser, and I think that corresponds to what we've been seeing as Marlins fans. So Dax Fulton, what does the outlook look like for him in 23?
I mean, I think he's a little bit older, but he's a little bit further away. I mean, and that's not a slight. I mean,
everyone's older compared to
if he makes it into the major leagues this year at the age of 20. I mean, I harken back to I'll never give up an opportunity not to talk about Jose Fernandez, but he came up when he was 20, and it was a case of, is he ready? This is early for the Marlins, specifically around that era, bringing up a player when he was young, when you've got all this, starting that clock early.
Yeah.
When the player is ready, the player is ready. Jose Fernandez was ready. I think Yuri's ready. So to say that Dax is a little bit older, then he's a little bit further away. He rose mainly because he had a great year. I mean, the stuff and the walks. Like, you usually see, players developing through the prospects leagues, and they've got the K per 9, but they haven't got the walk per 9. The walks always come a little bit later. The control comes a bit later. Yeah. Dax had that last year, admittedly, mostly at high A, and then absolutely blew the doors off Double A at the end of the year. So in a way, he's ready to start at Double A. I don't care about Triple A for pitching, not for top prospects. So he will start in Double A. If he has I think realistically a great year in Double A next year, then we're looking at 2024 for Dax. But a riser. So yes, he rose into the top 100. Yeah. If he has another year like he did this year, you could see him in the top 50 next year.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I remember the pick at the time. You go back to the draft itself where he was selected in the 2020 draft. And at the time, I remember the buzz. He just had Tommy John, I think, coming out of high school. So it was a high school pick, but he was a big dude, lefty. And at the time, he ends up as the Marlins had to go over slot amount for him because he was projected as a first rounder. But the Tommy John saw him slide. The Marlins like what they saw, thought, you know what, let's take him here in the second round. And everyone talked about it at the time, saying this feels like a great pick. And I think, as we know with the Marlins, they can really develop some pitching. That's for sure. So Dax Fulton, for me, a really intriguing name. I would say intriguing for many reasons, not just what his performance will be like in 2023 in the minor leagues, but I would also say clearly a name that is rising. And if there is to be some trade activity, the type of name that could be included in that as well as like a headline piece, perhaps. So we'll wait and see. The Marlins just have a lot of arms. They've already got a stacked rotation, and we're talking about Arraez, Dax Fulton. Let's talk about the next guy who actually could be the next guy after Arraez. You got to scroll a little bit further down now as well, the number 97, and it's Jake Eder. And, Jake Eder going back to 2021, losing track of years now, but had a stunning 2021. All of a sudden, he was the helium guy and then got hurt right at the back end of 21. Tommy John out for 2022, but he's on the comeback trail. I believe he's just had an episode with the Fish Stripes guys as well. So do check that out as well. I haven't managed to yet, but I think it only dropped today. So that'd be great to hear from Jake Eder himself. But he sits then. He's a top 100 prospect. Jake Eder, like I said, a helium guy, got hurt. It's going to be interesting to see how he comes back though, Sean. But overall, again, another arm here for the Marlins in the top 100.
They just keep doing
and another
it.
Lefty as well, sorry.
Yeah,
you have to say.
Another lefty. They keep doing it. I mean, the numbers, I mean, it's, all the way back in 2021, which just sounds sick to say. But
it does.
Tommy John is what it is. We know what that is. It's less of an issue now in modern era, but it's still no guarantee. So we need to see what he can do. I think, he's going to start the year. He's going to pitch 80 innings, maybe. That might be the high end as well. And then you're looking at another 120, 140 the year after. It's going to be a slow progression.
Yeah.
The only thing I care about for Eder is health.
Yeah.
If he can stay on the mound and the predetermined, because they'll have a predetermined number of innings they want him to pitch. If he can hit that this year and next year, hang the results. I don't care. If he's healthy through what they need him to do for the next 2 years, in my book, that's ideal. Of course, I fully expect with the talent he's got, if he's back to being what he was, he'll hit those numbers as well. He'll hit those high Ks, the good walks. It is a case of it's a slow progress. The fact that Kieth Law, who is, I don't want to call him anti-Marlins, but I know that there are many people, and you're one of them, Pete, that would say that. So for him to be in the top 100, given that, just shows you the pedigree that he had pre-Tommy John.
Yeah, for certain. Again, another really intriguing guy and deserves to be in the top 100. He absolutely, again, this is where like overall top prospect rankings is a funny thing when you factor in the injury itself. When players are injured, they typically drop quite significantly in these rankings. But, is that the right approach? I don't know. Rankings are just for fun anyway. I mean, I put some rankings out there and everyone wants to, give their opinion. It's a talking point. It's what it is. And really, overall, means little, to be honest. But we enjoy it. We enjoy the discourse. With that being said, Sean, who, with those three guys into Keith's top 100, was there anyone that you were surprised wasn't in there? Because I remember last year there was a couple of eyebrows raised on a few players. We'll talk about that in a second. But who do you think has perhaps maybe just missed out from the Marlins here this year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously last year Maya did he even make it, or was he just very low? I can't remember. Now with the Tommy John, he's out of the picture for now. Obviously the high pick Jacob Berry is a discussion point for me. Just because I've been big on him from the beginning, Yidi Cape, I think he did. I said last year when we spoke about prospects, I think that if he has a good year, as I predict, he could hit the top 100. Yeah. He had a good year, but didn't reach the top 100. So I think he's just about on that cusp. I'm not angry that he's not in the top 100, but I think he's in that 90 to 110 spot. In my mind, and I think he's fully deserved that as well. The fact that the Marlins moved on from Salas, I don't want to say quite easily, but they traded him away, knowing what they've got with Capé and maybe a few other players in the middle infield spot. They took that risk, and I think Capé has done, in my eyes, done enough on the field to warrant the Marlins feeling that they can be comfortable doing that.
I would say Capé seems to be the name, position-wise anyway, excuse me, that is getting probably the most buzz, most helium. He's one of the biggest risers, I would say, in the system. In some ways, that's not hard because seemingly the position players have had a bit of a struggle, it's fair to say. Just want to go back to the Kieth Law element from last year, just to kind of tidy that up. Max Meyer wasn't in his top 100 prospects. And Kieth Law ended up blocking me specifically about this tweet, I believe. I didn't tag him. It wasn't I tagged him. I just said, I'll read the tweet out to you and you guys can, we're a year on. So it's always interesting to look back. I said, Kieth Law doesn't have Max Meyer in his latest top 100 prospects list. I didn't finish there, though. I did add one extra sentence to bring it to life. And what I said was, however, Christian Pache is ranked 38th. This list is 3 poo emojis. The point I was making was I'd seen Pache. I'd seen him playing for the Braves, and I knew Pache's stick would not play at the major league level. I could see it. Kieth Law was just in love with the glove, and Pache's stick did not play. What happened to him at the Braves? Traded. So, Keith, if you're listening, and I hope you are, you were wrong. You were wrong about Meyer, and you were wrong about Pache. Anyway, Max Meyer still not in the top 100. So, there we go. Sean, you mentioned a name, though, I did want to talk about, and I think it's right for us to talk about Jacob Berry. Number one pick last year. It's fair to say it was polarizing across the Marlins fan base. And it's polarizing for a few reasons. The first one being that he clearly is limited at third base. And so, in effect, the Marlins have taken a first-round pick on a DH, it seems, which is fine in some ways. I mean, just about fine if the guy hits, right? And I guess that's the key thing. I remember Jacob Berry coming onto the broadcast and saying, I'm going to barrel more baseballs than anyone, which I love to hear. If Jacob Berry hits, his fielding doesn't matter, right?
He'd really have to hit. Just quick, because there are other prospect rankings out there that have him in the top 100. I think he's 61 on MLB Pipeline, but I don't think many people respect that. So I went back and I looked at what Kieth Law said about Jake Berry historically. So this is before the draft. This is before he became a Marlin. Because there have been some instances where players join the Marlins. It was prospects sometimes, major league players sometimes, and all of a sudden their rankings drop just by simply being in the proximity of the Marlins, which is always unfair. So I thought I'd have a look to see what he said. And basically, he said exactly what he continues to say, that Berry doesn't have a position in baseball. He's a DH. And DHs have to hit. There is no other option. And to be honest, he didn't have a bad year. He had a 118 WRC plus. The walks are okay. The Ks are okay. It's a small sample size, so you can't really knock the pop. But ultimately, he had a fine hitting season. Yeah. He's a little bit older. He's 21 years and 8 months already, and he's hitting 33 games in single A. So the point is that he has to hit, and he has to hit soon for him to be getting anywhere near deserving us saying he should be in the top 100. Yeah. Because at the moment, I think he's only in the top 100 from the pedigree, from what he did in college. So it is a case of, I won't argue that he should be in the top 100 or in the top 50. I think if he hits this year, I think he could rise very quickly. But for now, he is in that category of, when I look at Kieth Law's list, and I know a lot of people had issues with it, and having the Marlins at 21 was a bit of a concern. But my honest question is, who should be on that list that isn't on that list? And right now, I can't find a strong argument for anyone.
No. The thing is with Jacob Berry, just to call it out, like just my take on him generally in this prospect ranking situation, the pipeline have him where they have him because he was taken first overall and he had a great end to his college, career, whatever. So I get where they're coming from. I understand Kieth Law's approach of it's a positionless dude that we haven't seen do anything yet. It's fine. Next year's prospect ranking will be the ranking for Jacob Berry, really. Full body of work in the Marlins organization. What does he do? And he'll be then approaching 23, and that will be the moment where we're looking at him going, yes, legitimate major league potential bat, or probably someone that's going to flame out and that's going to really struggle. So we're a little bit too early on Berry, to be honest with you. Who do you think is going to be the biggest riser in the system now? As we kind of think about, we got the top 3 guys, top 4 guys, however. Is there anyone that you're kind of looking at thinking they could be a big riser, or who could be the biggest faller as well? You may have names for both of those questions. Let's start with the riser, if you have one, and maybe we'll finish on someone that may be overhyped at this point, if indeed you have a name. If there can be anyone overhyped in this Marlins system.
No, I mean, ultimately, the only riser for me is Cape. He is arguably the number one offensive prospect that the Marlins have, at least for me.
Yeah.
I think all the pitchers at the moment are adequately ranked. I think the biggest faller for me could be Khalil Watson. I think what have we really seen so far? We haven't seen much in the way of offensiveness. We've seen a lot of offensiveness, but we haven't seen much offense from him. And I think it is a case. He's young. He's so young, and I don't want to count these players out. But if we see another year like we did last year with the immaturity and the things that the team didn't have a good word to say about him, it became a public issue, something that they had to address publicly. And I think it is a case of he needs to come back. He needs to focus on playing baseball.
Yeah.
Because he has all the talent in the world. But if he can't catch that, then I think he could fall.
Yeah, it's again such a polarizing player, to be honest with you. I put it out there a couple of weeks back that I honestly believe that he could be the biggest riser. A guy that, the Marlins were applauded for drafting him and getting him to sign. It was, I think he was the highest paid position player out of high school, I think perhaps, or it was some kind of stat. So the Marlins took a big risk on this one, and the tools were high. But yeah, it was a poor 2022, and every report you've had is negative. But I just, if things click for him mentally, I could see Khalil Watson just absolutely turning into a monster, and everyone like this time next year sitting there going, yeah, Khalil Watson, consensus top 50 prospect in baseball again. Could absolutely see it. Could see it going exactly the opposite way as well. The other guy that I'm thinking about in terms of a riser is a name that it's a big name. It's a big name that's still a big prospect, and it's, we'll wait and see how it goes. But we shouldn't forget that Sixto Sanchez remains a prospect. He still hasn't graduated yet. And, we're seeing more and more clips of Sixto throwing. Like, I'm intrigued to see how this year goes. But there is a pathway to Sixto rising back up through the rankings here if he can just show the health. It's all down to the health again, mate. But yeah, I'm very intrigued. In terms of a biggest faller for me, yeah, I think Jacob Berry, I think, is the most likely to fall. Not to say I think he will, but right now I don't think you can accurately rank him. And for MLB Pipeline at circa 64, 65, wherever he is, if things go sideways for Jacob Berry in 23 and it's a slow progression, then he'll be nowhere near that kind of ranking next year. The other name too, just on a riser, Victor Mesa as well. Victor Mesa Jr. continues to impress. And I'm very intrigued to see what we get out of him in 2023. And wouldn't it be something if he absolutely ascends off? Victor was the big name and the big money. But if Victor Mesa Jr. actually becomes the one and actually starts to progress even further and higher, wouldn't shock me, to be honest, Sean, with Victor Mesa. But the Marlins just need to get something going with some offensive prospects. I mean, overall as a system, mate, they were ranked by Kieth Law at 21. They've got only arms right now in the top 100 list that Kieth has. Generally, it's all arms, and we've got some really volatile positional players in this system. I think for the Marlins, it's just about trying to get something changing in terms of offensive development. And for me, if they can start to make that happen in 23, that would be a huge impact for this club, not just for now, but for the future, mate, because we've been badly lacking in that department for many years, right?
Oh yeah, massive. It would be absolutely massive for the Marlins. If you look at what they've done over the off season and gone away from these toolsy guys going towards these contact-driven guys, that hasn't happened at the prospects yet because you only have so many opportunities to acquire these players. The players that are in the minors at the moment for the Marlins are these toolsy guys that they've got to try and teach the game of baseball. They've got the power, they've got the speed, they've got the defensive ability. But the hitting of a baseball is not a simple thing. No. Consistently. So these players, hopefully, one or two of these guys reach the major leagues and reach their full potential. But there is a concern in my mind that these players, these toolsy guys, you're taking a risk. You're taking a risk on the idea that these guys could be top players or they can flame out, rather than taking an everyday, boring major league player. And it'll be interesting to me how the Marlins play it going forwards in the next draft. Do they go for that risky high school bat, or do they go for a guy that they can project well? I mean, they did that with Blade and it didn't work out either. So in a certain sense, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
I know. There's still time on Blade, by the way. So let's not completely, absolutely flame him and say he's cooked. But it's funny, right? With Jacob Berry, look back, the Marlins last year and the Marlins more recently, like they know they've got the rotation, they know they've got the conveyor belt of arms, and that then just your tendency in a draft room in your first round, it takes you down a pathway of, well, we need some sticks and we need some college sticks. So all of a sudden you start to filter accordingly and you miss opportunities because you're a little bit blinded to perhaps, I don't know, I'm not in the room clearly, but you end up taking a Jacob Berry that you think can contribute in 2 years' time versus maybe a player that has a much better overall profile, but they're 18 and they're 5 years away and whatever. And the Marlins are looking like they're making win now decisions in the draft room, perhaps. And we'll wait to see how it plays out. It's just, like I said, on Jacob Berry, it's too soon. And 2023 will be the year where we start to get a read on it. But the year before, they go and they take the high school dude, the high upside, toolsy high school dude in Khalil Watson, and they've been burned by that seemingly as well. But there's still time, as I've already mentioned. I think he could really still contribute. So drafting in baseball is a tough situation. Prospect rankings is a tough situation. There is no sure thing in baseball. What is certain, though, is that this is the end of the episode because we've almost gone 40 minutes. But it's Friday. We've got nowhere to be. Sean's actually got a few cold ones cooling off anyway, so he'll be ready to rock and roll. Guys, thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. Thanks for joining me all week. There will be no episodes across the weekend unless there's any major news. You know that, guys, of course. In the meantime, have a wonderful weekend. Thanks to the UK GOAT, Sean Barrett. Hope you've enjoyed the episode. Please hit me up on the comments, primarily on YouTube. The comments there are awesome. Please drop your thoughts. It's a highly polarizing topic in terms of prospects. The Marlins ranked in the bottom third in terms of farm system. I think that's too low, primarily because most people think they have the best pitching prospect in baseball. And with that being said, that takes you up to at least mid-table. Nevertheless, guys, thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen. It's Friday. Let's enjoy ourselves. Be back on Monday.